Attention! Diamond Dogs! Even with Skullface dead, our brothers are unavenged. And the phantom pain he brought us lives on. Cypher is still out there. We know they planted spies, parasites among us. Watch the man to your left, to your right. Assume nothing. Report everything. It's the only way to protect ourselves. From here on out, you will be my eyes. The deadliest enemy's right here in our midst. And they will get no mercy.
Unit function.
Even with Skullface dead, our pain is still right with us. We need more strength. We need more men. Diamond Dogs needs to be bigger. Missions have come in too. We still have a long road ahead of us.
Skullface has finally burned out. The world is rid of his existence at last. Was he still alive? You could say that. But you could also say he'd been dead for decades. What's that supposed to mean? Biologically speaking, it's hard to say how much was his life. Side effects from the treatment? No. The primary effect. Keeping a dying host alive as long as possible. That is the whole point. But in the end, he grew too dependent on his children. As if he had any other way to keep on living. He first underwent parasite therapy before the Soviet Union became his home. His body was horribly burned. Fire washed across his thin young frame and stole his skin and his throat, even his lungs. Only through repeated therapies could the parasites keep him alive. Most of his life became something the parasites gave to him. And then he lost the ability to die. That is correct. The parasites live on past the host's death, still aiding cell composition. At that stage, there is no way to extract them from the host cells. There is no way of knowing when the last cell of Skullface's body would die. The only choice was to burn the whole thing. And his children, along with it. And I am one to talk. When my life is snuffed out, I expect you to treat my body the same way. And when I burn, I will truly be one with my children for the first time. You say there were 3 English vocal parasites. According to Skullface, yeah. Skullface had 2 of the English strain with him. You burned both of them. There was an oil fire. I tossed him in. So that just leaves 1. And you tell me Skullface said he used it. He said it was very close to me. Very close. One of your comrades. Or someone ordered to kill you. Or he could have been speaking metaphorically. Metaphorically? Close to your spirit. Close to your heart. Someone who either loves you or despises you. The second one makes a long list. Whichever it is, act with caution. Skullface implanted someone with the English language strain. Who it is irrelevant. Why? I tell you what Skullface really meant. Very close to you means you will be exposed. All the infected here have been given the Wolbachia. Even if the vocal cord parasites infect them now, they cannot reproduce. But if there's a different host among us, host to the English strain.
If that were the case, we'd see the symptoms.
What about the non-English speakers?
We have plenty of those, but the staff use English as a common language.
But if that someone has not spoken English yet, and begins to speak it now,
There'd be another outbreak.
the final mating pair of the English strain must be found immediately. Skullface is gone, but his threat still remains. On this base, do you see what the final mating pair is? With him dead, those parasites are the stain he wished to leave upon the world. His thirst for vengeance. In the flesh. Think. Does anyone here bear a grudge against you? Who would target you specifically?
The ethnic cleansers that Code Talker mentioned, they weren't Skullface's true goal. All we have is circumstantial evidence, but here's my theory. It was Cypher who started developing the vocal cord parasites as bioweapons, parasitic weapons, and Africa was the testing ground for them. As Code Talker said, their purpose is the ethnic cleansing of only those who speak a particular language. So they could do a weapon of mass destruction to eradicate specific groups, races, ethnicities, or colonies by the language they speak. Or a kind of absolute language control. Or maybe a tool for those arrogant fools to build some misguided utopia. I can see plenty of uses for them. However, in practical terms, they wouldn't be as dangerous as you'd think. Counteracting the parasites is easy, after all. Cut them out of your throat to save your life, or just don't talk. That also prevents the infection from spreading. So if the international community were to find out about them, they'd no longer be the threat they were conceived to be. In which case, their targets would be limited to minority groups as a deterrent or a terrorist tool. It's hard to imagine Cypher developing something like that as a main weapon for their arsenal. That leads me to think we've only tugged on one little thread in Cypher's grand tapestry. An obscure corner of their work, possibly forgotten altogether. In any case, things changed. When Skullface was forced to relocate to Africa and he saw that thread dangling. All the time he continued that research, he was secretly following his own agenda. The ethnic liberator parasites, his English language strain. Skullface said there were only 3 samples of the English language strain parasite, and I think we can believe him. Bringing his ethnic liberator's plan to fruition depended on creating an English version of the vocal cord parasites at all costs. But an English strain would have been useless to Cypher. Worse, it could have destroyed everything they'd built. It was the one type they couldn't allow. That means Skullface was forced to develop his English strain out of sight of Cypher's network. Naturally, he couldn't use the greenhouse facility Cypher had set up and filled with guinea pigs. Skullface must have found some secret place to create his precious few English parasites, hiding all evidence like a man cheating on his wife. Somewhere, an entirely standalone environment. And when his plan entered its final phase, he must have made the place disappear. Some little room, could be anywhere, but now nowhere at all. We'll never know where he did it, but to elude Cypher's surveillance, it couldn't have been big. I believe Skullface was telling the truth. There were only ever 3 samples of the English language strain. Why activate Sahelanthropus in Afghanistan? This is how Skullface wanted things to play out. The Soviet Union secretly develops a new type of nuclear weapon and successfully deploys it in Afghanistan. Revealing the existence of Sahelanthropus results in a return to the glory days of the Cold War. The threat it poses reignites the nuclear arms race between the world's major powers. The demand for nuclear weapons increases around the globe. What if you then introduced a nuclear weapon anyone could get their hands on? Non-nuclear nations, militant groups of all shapes and sizes, they'd all jump at the chance. Sahelanthropus was a marketing tool to sell nukes all around the world. But I think it's safe to say that plan was stamped out before it got up and running. The world's intelligence agencies never did turn up anything conclusive on it. After all, Sahelanthropus vanished before word could spread. Everything that's happened is already a fading memory, never to join the pages of history. Except for Cypher. Cypher won't forget. They'll already be working on something, quietly, beneath the surface. They'll use the pieces of data scraped together from this incident to build their own bipedal weapon. It'll take them a long time to complete it, but for now, the greed sector have found their new life's work. We'll have to be ready too.
Muy buenas Darks, aquí estamos en Misiones Avanzadas, capítulo 2, Misiones Avanzadas del Metal Gear, con Hardy y Tona.
Hello Darks, muy buenas.
Veis, tenemos aquí el Gear casi construido para mandarlo a despliegues. Y bueno, ahora vamos a hacer episodio 32. Ponemos un cassette. Entramos.
The agent that the CIA had working for them inside OKB-0 has gone missing. We've been given the job of finding and extracting him. The target learned of XOF's plans to use vocal cord parasites and had hidden himself with the CIA's Mujahideen allies. But following Skullface's death, the Soviets retook OKB-0 and all contact with the target was lost. He may have tried to go back to OKB-0, but even Langley isn't sure what's going on. After all, they've never even learned of Skullface's plan. That's probably what they want to get out of the man once he's extracted. But we can't allow Langley to learn of the existence of the vocal cord parasites. That's why I want you to bring the target out, boss. Once we have him, we can report him dead and keep him on base. All contact with Langley is being conducted through a cutout. Our reputation should remain intact. As for the reward, it's already in the hands of the cutout. All you have to do is get the job done. Just like always.
Mission accepted. Heading to Afghanistan.
Find and extract the missing CIA agent. The target was laying low in the friendly Mujahideen during the vocal cord parasites incident. The man headed back to OKB-0 after the Soviets recaptured it. Check the target's VI on your iDroid.
Estamos ya aquí, desplegados totalmente. Ahora es muy importante, ¿verdad, Hardy? Que nos han quedado muchos cassettes en el aire. A poner unos cuantos, que es la única manera de obtener historia.
Cierto, argumento.
A ver cuál ponemos. Tú. Venga. Que os falta por escuchar bastantes.
You said that the nuke Skullface was trying to spread around the world were equipped with a failsafe. Something that could shut them down at will. His will.
Quite so. After all, he needed a guarantee that a buyer wouldn't simply turn the weapons back on him.
So how can they be stopped?
The criticality trigger, that is, the detonator, is a complete black box design. Any attempt to dismantle it causes it to melt in seconds, using the corroding archaea. The design ensures that no detonation is possible unless it disengages the lock.
So he had a way to disengage it remotely.
Precisely. The client simply presses a button. At that moment, the detonator begins transmission with a surveillance satellite. The satellite reports to him how the client is trying to use the nuke. If he does not object, the lock is disengaged.
But if it's a risk to him in any way,
the detonator melts down. The same is true if detonation does not occur within a preset time after the lock is disengaged. The nuke is rendered useless.
Who the hell would buy something with strings attached like that?
The client would never know until the moment they actually tried to use it. Most likely, he would have explained the time delay as the detonators needing time to activate. And he only intended to sell to technologically primitive groups in the first place.
let me guess. He'd claim it was defective and offer a replacement. Shadier than a used car salesman.
Skullface shakes your hand like a friend, using the other to control you like a puppet. This is how he works.
Subject on board. Leave the rest to us.
Bueno, pues ahora que se ha terminado el cassette, comentaros que aquí elegí el D-Horse, que va muy bien para la misión esta.
Me da la sensación de que va un pelín más lento, ¿no?
Sí, a mí también, y yo creo que es por la armadura que lleva, que lo hace más lento. Es muy posible, ¿eh? Yo también me doy cuenta, no son cosas que...
Es la que da más protección, ¿no?
Es la que da más protección, sí. Que le queda guapísimo, la verdad. Y más para esta zona de Afganistán.
Sí, sí. Además me sorprende mucho que lo sigas manejando. Yo la verdad que desde que tuve el perro la Quiet, el caballo no lo volví a manejar en todo el juego.
Pues sí, porque sabéis una cosa, Snake cuando obtiene la velocidad 3 de movimiento es tan rápido casi como el caballo, diría yo. A ver, no he hecho carrera porque no lo puedo hacer. Pero yo diría que es tan rápido como el caballo. No sé, la verdad es que la guía, que la leo sobre todo para las tareas de misión y esto, me recomendaba que llevara el D-Horse. Y como no se había mostrado la armadura esta, pues digo, va, aprovechando eso, pues lo hacemos.
Bien hecho, bien hecho.
Aquí las tareas de la misión, aparte del obligatorio que se extrae de la gente, está opcional, que los tenemos que coger, por eso del D-Horse, lo tenemos que extraer antes de que el equipo de búsqueda lo descubra.
Uf, casi se va para abajo el caballo.
Así que también extraer, como estáis viendo, a estos que están montados en el Walker Gear. También es otra tarea.
Cómo mola la mira esta.
Sí, lo que pasa es que no me gusta visualmente en el juego, es muy tocha.
Ya.
Pero
no pega
sí,
mucho con la época, tampoco da la sensación, ¿no?
no, pero sí, la verdad que de uso... La verdad que de uso sí.
Hostia, el de Walker sí va solo. Es bien buena zona esta, ¿eh?
Sí.
De aquí arriba. Creo que tengo ya mira favorita para el online, que por cierto está ya al caer.
¿Está ya al
caer?
caer?
Al canal.
Hombre, por supuesto. Sí. Y tengo que decir que esta misión, para sacar todas las tareas, hay que repetirla 2 veces. Porque una es esta, extraer antes de que lo encuentren el equipo de búsqueda, como hemos hecho ahora, es la que vamos a completar. Y luego, si te lo encuentran, se lo llevan a otra base, y en esa base sí que tienes que extraer más prisioneros, extraer también un soldado. Así que esta misión, si quieres completarla con las 6 tareas que hay, se tiene que hacer 2 veces, no se puede en una.
A mí eso nunca me ha gustado, el no poder hacer el 100% en la primera partida.
Pues en esta ocasión es imposible, porque deberíamos de haber esperado a que el convoy este de búsqueda lo descubriera y se lo llevara a la base. Así que bueno, ya lo tendríamos. Ahora tenemos que salir de la zona. Y ya
¿Sales por tierra?
Salgo por tierra, sí. Esto no es ninguna tarea, lo digo para ahorrarme unos puntos PMB, que siempre vienen bien. Que ahora hemos subido el helicóptero a nivel 4 de velocidad. Nos gasta 54.000 de PMB, pero es rapidísimo. Viene volado, extrae en un momento.
Pues sí. Una de las cosas que he hecho mucho de menos en este juego, al menos en el modo historia, por suerte, gracias a Dios está confirmado en el online, es las camos, las pinturas de la cara que había en el 3.
Sí, es verdad. Es que en el apartado de gorras debería de, aparte de poderte poner el pañuelo, la bandana, que por cierto ya la mostraré en siguientes vídeos, debería de dejarte poner camos, pinturas. Sí, estoy de acuerdo.
Es que da la sensación de que apenas influya el camuflaje.
No.
Lleves lo que lleves, te ven a la misma distancia.
Sí, el único traje que es el de infiltración, que te va bien para que no te oigan. Lo demás... Sí, digamos que eso es un poquillo decepcionante. A ver si por aquí salimos ya. Sí. Ya me estás preocupando. ¿Sabes que tenemos al... Acabamos de extraer al Green Arrow, ¿no?
Hostia.
¿Sí te has dado cuenta?
Sí. Es verdad. Tenía una cara de dormido ahí el tío.
Mission complete and how? They're gonna tell stories about this one, boss.
Te habías peleado con el...
Y
con
precisión
el
100%, ¿eh? 100% precisión.
Ole.
Boss, the target filled us in on what's been going on. He betrayed the Soviets, passing information to Langley, but got scared after learning XOF used the vocal cord parasites. Then came feelings of guilt that his leaks sent comrades to their deaths, and fear that America might deploy such a weapon itself. But in reality, XOF and Langley don't have a collaborative relationship, and Skullface was not working for America. Still, I can't blame the man for being afraid. After laying low with the Mujahideen, he tried to cut his ties with the US and return to the Soviet military. But along the way, someone came after him, and he was forced back into hiding. Could have been remnants of XOF looking to silence him. And you know the rest. He doesn't seem to know much about the parasites, but nevertheless, it'd be too dangerous to hand him over to Langley or the Soviets. We'll keep him here as originally planned.
Bueno, Darks, pues hasta aquí sería el vídeo este, el primero del primer capítulo, el del segundo capítulo. Ya tenemos completado el Gear para el despliegue, como habéis visto, nos lo han dado ya. Esto nos servirá para hacer misiones de despliegue de más nivel. Y he conseguido una S, hostia, qué buena. No es que abunden. Y bueno, nada, despedirnos ya.
Emmerich's finished development on that battle gear of his. Get back to Mother Base.
Un saludo.
Bueno, hasta la vista.
battle gear is an armored weapon developed to take on hostile bipedal weapon systems. But unlike the Soviet-funded Walker gear, the battle gear still hasn't been properly field tested. I'd like to assign a combat unit to take it on dispatch missions, so that we can evaluate its capabilities and reliability. Assuming you've got no objections, give the order to dispatch the unit from your iDroid. Boss, we need evidence to prove our suspicions about Emmerich. Head to the central base camp in Afghanistan and recover that AI pod. It's time we purge Diamond Dogs of that traitorous parasite once and for all.